Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of Stuart Saturday Live. I'm your hostess, Andrea Zuvich, the 17th Century Lady, and I'm talking to you from Northern Derbyshire, England. For those joining us for the first time, I'm a historian of the House of Stuart from 1603 to 1714, and I specialize in the social and cultural history of the era, having published several books on the period and written a biography of Barbara Villiers, Charles II's most infamous mistress. I'm currently working on a few projects, mainly a biography of Queen Mary II. Stuart Saturday Live stems from my Twitter hashtag, which now X, Stuart Saturday, which I created about a decade ago. I post a theme about the period and people join in with their contributions, and it's a fun and active community. This show started in 2023, and I've been so fortunate to have had so many guests, from academic historians to historical novelists, who have shared their passion and expertise with us. This episode will be somewhat different, for instead of talking about the contents of a guest's research, we'll instead be focusing our attentions on the history of a specific property, Harvington Hall, an Elizabethan manor house located in the hamlet of Harvington in Worcestershire, England. But before we meet our guest, I think we need to have a brief look at the context of the period we will be discussing. Early modern Britain had a great deal of religious turmoil, and for the purposes of this discussion, we will be focusing on England. For about 1,000 years, England was Roman Catholic, but following Henry VIII's split from the Catholic Church in 1534 and the founding of the Anglican Church, the English Reformation began, which included the greatly destructive dissolution of monasteries. So here's a photo I took a few years ago during my visit to Glastonbury Abbey, one of the over 800 abbeys that were dissolved. This particular abbey was dissolved in 1539 and its abbot subjected to execution and quartering. The destruction of the abbeys impacted not only the physical structures of these buildings, but on the communities which had for so long grown around them and in many cases depended on them. Culturally, religiously, and socially, there was radical change from the top down, and there were inevitable rebellions against this, most notably the Pilgrimage of Grace in 1536, and later the Northern Rising in 1569. Many people felt torn between the faith they and their ancestors had, and this new reformed faith rapidly ushered in under the Tudors. Under Henry's Protestant children, his son Edward and daughter Elizabeth, Catholics became increasingly persecuted, and those who refused to attend Anglican services, thus committing a statutory offense, were often faced with fines or worse, and we call these people recusants. In the act against Jesuits and seminarists of 1584 under Elizabeth I, no Jesuit or priests shall come into or remain in this realm. It went on to say, and if he do, that then every such offence shall be taken and adjudged to be high treason, and every person so offending shall for his offence be adjudged a traitor, and shall suffer, lose, and forfeit, as in the case of high treason. English Catholics throughout the 17th century would be increasingly vilified, as you can see from this detail from the Double Deliverance, 1588 to 1605, and we might be able to get the image up shortly. And it was made in 1621, and let's see if we can get the image up. But in this detail, we will see a group of shifty-looking Catholics sitting at a table together. Let's see. All right. Well, we might be able to find that later. But there was a horned figure in the middle with demons surrounding them, and there was a banner above, and it read, in perpetuam papistarum infamium, or to the perpetual infamy of the papists. So you could see it was a time of great danger, intrigue, and turmoil, and we are lucky that some buildings have survived So now we return to one building, Harvington Hall, with its own dramatic tales, which will be shared by its manager today, who is joining us live from Worcestershire. Please welcome Phil Downing.
Hello.
Hello, Phil. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Anyone who sees your social media and YouTube channel will be able to see how much enthusiasm and love you have for the hall and for history itself. You have a personal connection to the property. When did you first visit, and what did that experience do for you, please?
I first visited when I was 16 years of age. So talking about 21 years ago now. And I visited with my mum. And as soon as we got there and walked around the property and had a guided tour, I told my mum at the time that I belong in this house, and I don't know
Oh,
why. So I
that's
had this
lovely.
amazing fascination by it as soon as I visited, and I don't know how I was going to end up there because I never studied history at university. I didn't do a master's in heritage management or anything like that. I was actually a PGA golf professional, so I was
Wow.
a golf professional. It has nothing to do with historic buildings or history at all. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of how I sort of fell in love with it really, and
Right.
I tried to volunteer there for 10 years, and no one ever got back to me. And I
Oh,
tried and I tried and I tried, and I don't think they liked young people at the time. That's clearly what the problem was.
oh
And
my dear.
and this is going to sound really sad now. When I passed my driving test, I used to drive up to the hall and I used to sit outside it for hours and just stare at it.
Oh, that's
And
lovely,
then,
though. You had
yeah,
such a connection. Wow.
yeah, and then years later, somehow I became the hall manager. It's absolutely bonkers.
That's fantastic. But so you always felt this connection, but when did you start having a love for history? Did you always have it, or did it increasingly grow as
I
you
mean,
you got?
I've always had a love for history, and I think from probably the age of 6 or 7 at school, we were
Mhm.
learning about castles and sort of earlier history, really. And I think it was just this realization that people had lived before, and I never think about it when you're a child. You're so wrapped up in your own little world and everything you do. It's that
Yeah.
realization that people have been here before and how interesting they used to live very differently to us. And it's just those feelings you get. You kind of have that feeling of like, I don't know. I mean, I don't like talking about this kind of thing because I think it makes me sound a bit weird. But when people sort of say they feel that they've lived before, I think
Mm.
it's kind of, I feel very attached to a certain period of history, and I don't know why, and I always have done since I was a child. So I think just
Right.
ever since being at school, really, I've absolutely
Mhm.
loved history. Used to love all the school trips we used to go on, and whereas sort of when you're sort of 18 and 19, you should be going down the pub and drinking and things. I used to just much prefer going to historic places.
Well, I love
That's much
that.
more my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because with my husband and I, he loves going to the pub, right? And I've always loved history, so we always do this thing where if we go to some historic site, we always end up going to a pub too. So everyone's happy, and
Yeah.
we could talk about the history as well. So yeah, I completely understand what you mean about feeling really drawn to different times in the past. I certainly feel like that, and I think that's why I gravitate towards the 17th century. Um, Even though I think in school we're usually taught about Tudors only, or World War II.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but there are so many different, amazing, fascinating periods in history. It's lovely.
Mm.
Um, so going back to Harvington Hall, please. Uh, would you give us a brief history, particularly of its origins, maybe 16th and 17th centuries, please?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, firstly, Harvington Hall goes back much further than that. So we're talking medieval. It's a beautiful Elizabethan moated manor house. It dates to the
Mhm.
late 1570s, early 1580s. Um, but the moat surrounding the hall dates to about 1270. We know there have been
Wow.
people living there since the 1280s, but there is some evidence now that we might actually be a Bronze Age site. Because if you ever look at a
Wow.
LiDAR map on Google, when it sort of makes it grayscale, and
Mhm.
you can see there's a perfect circle that goes around the hall, and also the moat and the hall is got in the middle of this perfect circle that goes sort of beyond our moats and around the buildings opposite the hall. So we could be a lot older than that. But the house that we see today is late Elizabethan. Um, it's really a 17th century house because during the late Elizabethan period, there was only really one man living there. It was a bit of a bachelor pad, really, I think we'd call it. And it's really when the 17th century comes along, it becomes a family home. It's a
Right.
house that was only lived in for 120 years by one family. So we're kind of talking, the 1580s right through to 1700. And after that, it wasn't lived in by a family ever again. And when I say that, I mean
Oh,
a family of wealth. So part of the hall was demolished in 1700, and the family died out. So
right.
the house has been neglected, which has actually saved it. And we say it's its saviour really because we have the largest collection of wall paintings in the country. That is a fact. And we also have 7 priest holes, which is more than any other house in the country. So what looks like a relatively small country house from the outside now has a lot of original 16th and 17th century features in it.
Oh, brilliant.
So it's a fascinating house, but also what's unique about it is the fact, well, I say unique, well, it is a unique house, but um, the layout of the house has been manipulated to confuse people. So there's sort of so early part of the 17th century, about 1603, we think, the hall's been remodeled on the inside to confuse people, which is absolutely incredible. It's mind blowing, and people get lost all the time walking around it, and it's great to watch people get lost.
Wow. Brilliant. Um, yes, it's incredible how I didn't know about that. That it was a sort of bachelor house first. Um, Quite a large house for
Yeah.
for someone, but and then it turned into a family home. That's really lovely. Um, I wonder if we can get some photos up. And oh yes, and I was wondering if perhaps you can let us know about the different photos that we have and what the context of each one, please. And you've
Yeah.
kindly let us show them on the broadcast today.
Yeah. So this room here is the withdrawing room. It's an absolute beautiful room, and this was taken in the morning. It faces east, and it's when it gets light in, and you can see the lighting of the board there. That's actually the oldest part of the hall. So that's the medieval part of the hall, but it has Tudor paneling on the inside. Um, but it is those walls. Some of those walls are wattle and daub in there.
Oh,
But it's it's part of a series of rooms really, where you would have the great chamber, the withdrawing room, and the bed chamber very close by. So the great chamber is actually kind of on the left hand side of this photo. There's a door going into the great
hmm,
chamber, and this is the room
right.
the family would have withdrawn to after they've been in the great chamber drinking, dancing, and entertaining their guests. And this is more of a quiet space really for them. But I like this room in the fact that there's a big window on the right hand side. You can't see it, but it's there on the right hand side of the photo, and it overlooks the front of the hall, well, out front of the hall. But it's a good viewpoint for if there are any priest hunters coming towards the house uninvited to come and look for the Catholic priests. Um, so it's a good, well positioned there. You can see in the photo as well, actually, that you can see the shape of the timber above. It's like a barrel shaped timber.
Hmm.
Um, and that's the skeleton really of what's there because there should be a plastered ceiling there that was removed
Oh,
nearly 6 years ago now. So the plastered
right.
ceiling was falling down. So yeah, the vaulted ceiling that was in there was falling down, and we've had it removed. So that's just showing you the timbers underneath that create the barrel shape. Um, but what's also interesting, sort of back right of this photo, you'll see a ladder propped up against the wall, the
Yes.
back wall, and that ladder is a priest hole ladder. It is only one of 2 priest hole ladders that still survive in the country. So it's
Wow.
very it's a rare thing to have, and it is the most solid one because the other one is sitting in a house called Ufton Court in Berkshire, and it's very flimsy. Where our ladder's quite sturdy, still to this day. Um,
Wow, that's
which
great.
is great, which would indicate there's a priest hole in there, and there is a priest hole in that room, but it's not. in that alcove where the ladder is, it's on the other side behind a door and under the floorboard. So you can't see it on this
Okay.
photo. But I think you might have a photo of that priest hole coming up in a bit.
Right.
So I won't spoil it too much.
Right. And here we have some stairs.
Yes, this is the Newell staircase. And for those of you that don't know what Newell stands for, it's the Newell post. It's the centre post of the staircase that runs all the way through. This staircase is, I have to say, one of my favourite things about the hall. This staircase is unique. It's Elizabethan, but it has painting on the underside of it. It's the only example in the country where they've painted the underside of the stairs. Or say the only example that still survives. They must
I
have all
see.
been. But the further up you go the stairs, you will see that the treads are all painted in this sort of beautiful black kind of swirly patterns and things like that. So yeah, it's an amazing thing to see, and the fact we still walk up and down that staircase is quite an incredible thing, really.
Wow.
So it goes from the ground floor all the way to the top floor. So Harvington Hall is a three-story house.
Oh, okay.
A tall house. It's a big
Mm-hmm.
house, and yeah, that goes from the bottom all the way up into the attic. So effectively, it goes 4 stories, that staircase, all the way up.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's a lovely, lovely staircase.
Yeah, so much detail in everything. I'm sorry, but it's just it blows my mind that there's so much that remains, so much detail.
Yeah, of course. So this is called the Red Room, and one thing you can see, you have to sort of do this to see it straight because the door's wonky. It's a very wonky house. So the house has subsided over the centuries, and this is a perfect example of it. You can see in the distance that everything else looks quite straight in the room, the far side. The table, look, it's straight, but then you look at the door and it does that, and the walls as well. So it's called the Red Room, and the reason is you can see actually on the sort of right of the door, you'll see the timber there stained red. That's why it's called the Red Room. And what's interesting, on the left wall where the window is, you can see some red stripes going up the wall, and that's some very crude red paint where they've tried to paint red timber up a brick wall,
Oh.
which is quite a weird thing. And the war painting specialist finds this very odd because, of course, brick is the superior material to build in those days. So why are you painting timber on a brick wall? Because you're cheapening it really by doing that. So bit of a mystery.
That's odd. Yeah, I've never encountered
Yeah,
that before. That's
very strange.
quite something. Yeah.
But what's
Wow.
interesting, I was going to say before you, I was going to say, I don't know if we can go back a bit. There was one other thing about that. That
Yeah.
fireplace in the distance is a false fireplace. It's not real. It is an
Oh.
escape route. It's an
Wow.
escape route. So the room that this photo is taken in the Red Room is, we think, sort of a dining space for priests, and the far room is the painted bedchamber, which is where the priest bedroom for the priest, and that's his escape route out of the room into the attic. So yeah,
Incredible.
amazing.
Wow. So this place is full of secrets and it's fantastic.
This is one of my favourite things of the hall completely. This is the painted door of the Great Chamber. So this is the original door, probably dates to about 1610, something like that. And
Brilliant.
it shows how all of the panelling in the Great Chamber once looked. And as you can see, the light's beautiful on this. I took a photo of this. This was a few weeks ago, and the sun was shining through the window, and you can see the golden colour of the door. So it was originally golden yellow paint with different colours. You have a black border, then there's another green inner border, then another black border, and then you can see these kind of red and black swirl patterns that have been freehand painted. They're all very different. And the door, the door's just there, and we still open it, we still walk through it, and it's quite spine-tingling. Really, you think all the centuries that the house has stood there, that door has been there. How many people have walked through it?
Yes.
An amazing feeling. It really is.
That certainly adds a level of romanticism, in my opinion. It's incredible. I'm always filled with awe about these tangible historical elements, and I felt the same way when I was in my time at Kensington Palace. That there were things that were there for 300 years, and
Yeah.
they were still in use, and it's just so nice that people still look after these things. And so I think you're doing a fantastic job, and of course all the volunteers as well and staff. But if you could tell me, please, what exactly is painted, because I can't see very well. But are those flowers or just what kind of uh, images are on that
The,
panel of the door?
it's not floral. There's a diamond in the middle with
Mhm.
some pattern of some kind.
Right.
The rest of it, they're just swirls really, um,
Mhm.
and
It's
with
really
like red.
lovely.
It's lovely with like little reds. I don't know what they almost look like little cherry tomatoes. They just little really weird little red
Yeah.
little things. I don't really know what they are, but the beautiful thing about it is they're all hand done because they're not been stenciled on because every single one is slightly different. Now
Wow.
bear in mind that's just the door. We've got
Mhm.
a big room that they would have had to have done, and the paneling goes all the way up to the ceiling. And I mean, it's a good 15 foot high at least in that room. So the paneling is
Wow.
it's all over the place. So it would have, yeah, it's a lot of painting, a lot of work.
Yes. Gosh. Wow. Thank you.
And this is also the spiral staircase again. This is going down to the sort of the ground. The ground. And
Ah,
what I love about it, you can see all the where all the footprints have been. Look, you can see where all it's been worn because they're all the original steps. So you can see how
fantastic.
the route that people have done from the ground floor, and that was probably used quite a lot by the servants, actually, by people bringing up food from the great kitchen, which isn't too far away from the bottom of this staircase.
Oh,
Um, so actually, where you just saw that door,
mhm.
if you went to that door and turned immediately left, this is what you'd see: the bottom of the spiral
Oh,
staircase.
I see.
So the door is right next to the spiral staircase. Um, so yeah, so
Okay.
left of there, so you can see the but
Yeah.
left of the door, you can see a step of the spiral staircase. So
Oh,
it
okay.
literally is just there.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do visitors, are they able to go up and down these stairs?
They
Yeah.
don't go. They don't do this little bit that you can see,
No.
but the other
Okay.
photos you had of the staircase, they do walk up that. That's the very bottom bit that we don't walk up. And well, we do as staff volunteers, but the public
Yeah,
don't. But they
I
get to
see.
walk up the rest of it. Yeah.
Right. Excellent. Wow. Thank you so much for showing that to us.
Okay.
So not only do you have this, I think, an awesome job being the manager of such a property, but you've got some good photography skills too. um, so, were there any figures from the 17th century associated with Harvington Hall that you would like to share with us? Um, yeah, for example, were there any recusants at the hall?
Yes, we're a family of recusants at Harvington Hall. Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, there's only one family living there, and that's all through the 17th century. So
Right.
you've got Humphrey Packington, the man who built the house in the 1580s.
Hmm.
He was a recusant Catholic. He was only fined 4 times for recusancy in his years, which means he's got friends in high places and he's probably a few backhanders and all the rest of it. He gets away with quite a lot actually, because there's no way he's attending the Church of England service at all. So he gets away with it quite a bit. So there's Humphrey Packington. He's an interesting chap actually because yeah, he was a bachelor for a long time. He didn't get married till the age of 47, which I find really odd, very odd,
Oh,
in fact, actually.
hmm,
Um, very strange for that period, I think.
right.
So he marries a lady called Bridget Kingsmill to start with. We don't talk about her too much. She's a bit of a controversial figure, is Bridget.
Is
She dies
she?
in 1606, yes. She liked the men, is all I can tell you.
Okay.
She was married before to a chap, someone in Ireland, and he died, and she married Humphrey Packington. There's a bit of an age gap. He's a bit older than her, only a little bit, and
Hmm.
the historical description that we still have of Bridget said that she was a lewd madam who was an enemy to herself and in danger of the pox. And
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, but you do think to yourself, well, maybe, as you know, men don't write too nicely about women in history, so it's okay for a man to go and sleep around, but it's not too good for a woman to do the same thing. Um, so we thought this was probably them just being a bit harsh on her. But actually, some new evidence has come to light in the last 2 years that
Mhm.
when they got married, she sent Humphrey to Ireland to go and deal with all of her estate from her first marriage. Because
Hmm.
he's a lawyer effectively for Packington, so he
Right.
deals with all that kind of thing. And when he comes back to Harvington Hall, there's a baby boy that's not his.
Oh.
And so he then banishes her to Ireland. And then she writes to Humphrey and says, "Can I come back to Harvington Hall to die?" And he allows that to happen. And she dies at the Hall. But this baby boy is still around. We don't know where he goes. We don't know if he stays at Harvington or where he goes. But it's now come to
Oh.
light when Humphrey Packington dies in 1631. This young boy, who's not his child, came knocking on the door and said, "Well, I'm his son and I'm entitled to all of the estate, or all of his estate."
Oh.
And his daughter, his eldest daughter at the time, who was set to inherit everything, basically paid him £150 to go away. But what's interesting is this child actually took Humphrey's surname. His name was Bernard Packington. I didn't even know Bernard was a name back then. But
Oh.
Bernard Packington, and yeah, he kind of vanishes off the records after that, which is a bit strange. So
Yeah.
that's those. So that's a bit of scandal that we found out in the last couple of years.
Wow. That's
Um,
quite something.
it's great scandal. Um,
Yeah.
and then we had Humphrey's second wife, Abigail Cheverel, which I always make a joke, try and say her surname when you've been drinking alcohol because it's quite difficult, Cheverel. And she, she continued to live at the Hall. She lived there during the Civil War. The Hall was pillaged by Cromwell's troops.
Mm.
So ransacked the place as they like to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a dower house, really. Um, Humphrey Packington's nephew was a priest living at the Hall in the sort of 1640s, and he was described as a domestic servant because, of course, he has to be hidden.
Mm.
But it's mainly a woman house, really, because after kind of Humphrey and his wife Abigail die, their eldest daughter Mary Yates inherits the Hall, and she lives there from 1659 to 1696. And
Mm.
she dies at the age of 85 and a half, which is not a bad age.
That's a really good innings back then.
Really, really good. And
Wow.
one of her nieces, I think, made the age of about 89. So, I mean, this family did all right.
Yeah.
They had good genes, I think, because they did seem to live quite a good age.
I'd
Um,
love to know their secret.
yeah, well, I always make a joke because we've got a well, an indoor well in our kitchen, which is
Uh-huh.
actually quite an unusual thing to find indoor water in an Elizabethan house. It's very unusual.
Mm.
And yeah, I always make the joke that the well water must have been pretty good because they made a good age. So
The sort of
yeah,
tuck everlasting sort of thing there.
yeah.
Gives them youth. Wow, brilliant. You just you made me laugh about what was it? Was it her name Bridget, the first wife?
Bridget
Um,
Kingsman,
yeah, because I encountered very similar situations when I was working on my biography of Barbara Villas. So she had a similar reputation. So yeah. Um, so I touched briefly on what Catholic recusancy was in my introduction. Do you have anything to add to that?
well, yeah, it's those Catholics who refuse to attend the Church of England service on Sunday, something they're
Mhm.
required to do.
Yeah,
And of course, the word comes from recusare, which is to refuse in Latin. Um,
fantastic.
and yeah, I mean, a lot of obviously, I mean, it was said. I think it was said I think it was about 8.5, 9,000 recusants in England. I think at the end of Elizabeth's reign.
Mhm.
Probably a lot more Catholics, but people kept their heads down.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and something that people find always interesting that that recusancy finds you can be charged from the were fined from the age of 16. So that's to be a 16-year-old and have to be able to pay these fines. I mean, during Elizabeth's
Mm,
reign, it started off at like 12 pence a week, which is not a lot of money. But then it's after the arrival of the Jesuits in England, and in 1581, the fine went to £20 a month.
yeah,
Um,
that's
so
crazy.
it's a lot of money.
That's
It's a lot
so
of
much
money.
money. Yeah.
Um, but as I said, like the man of Harvington Hall was only fined 4 times,
Mm.
so he got away with quite a lot. And the thing is, he's got lots of priest holes in his house, so that they kind of leave him alone. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
interesting.
the thing is, throughout the 17th century, recusancy didn't really go away. I mean, if we go forward a few decades to the 1680s, John Evelyn, the courtier, wrote in his diary, most of the great officers, both in the court and country, lords and others, were dismissed, as they would not promise His Majesty their consent to the repeal of the test and penal statutes against popish recusants. So, and of course, there would be this fake popish plot later on during the reign of Charles II. So yes, there was a lot of hysteria at times against the Catholics, and I'll have Justine Brown will joining me on the show in a few months, and I'm sure we'll be talking about how Roman Catholics were regarded during the latter half of the 17th century. But of course, I have to go back and ask about the gunpowder plot. Um, so, oh, here we are. We have this image, which is another detail from the Double Deliverance 1588 to 1605, and it was made in 1621 and now held at the Yale Center for British Art. So, does Harvington Hall have any connections with the gunpowder plot?
Not directly, no.
Mm,
Humphrey Packington very much kept his head down, and
mm,
he was not a radical Catholic by any means. So the answer is no, but very, very close by to the hall has links to the gunpowder plot. So where I'm sitting now at home, I'm 9 miles away from the hall at the moment, but about 4 or 5 miles away from where I'm sitting now, was a house owned by Robert Winter, called Huddington Court, and it's where the gunpowder plotters were on I think the 6th and the 7th of November.
mm,
They were there. They celebrated Mass, I think, on the 7th of November, and then made their way pretty much past Harvington Hall to a place called Holbeach House, which is where the majority of them got shot dead on the 8th of November.
yeah.
So there's a lot going on around Harvington Hall, and also again, very very close by to where I am is a place called Hinlip Hall, and Hinlip Hall
Mm,
was raided by priest hunters after the gunpowder plot, and it was there. They were there for 12 days looking for priests.
wow.
So the plotters are in and around Harvington. Well, sort of in Harvington, but they're around Harvington, very very close by. I suspect a they would have had a knock on the door. I would have thought, because of course they're trying to rally all local Catholics at this point. I mean,
Mm,
to join this rebellion, it's already failed. There's no hope, and I suspect someone's knocked on the door of Harvington Hall, and they have had it firmly slammed in their face and say, you know, um, go
mm,
away, kind of thing. But what's interesting, talking about this, there's a letter dated 1604 that Humphrey Packington of Harvington Hall was writing, and unfortunately the letter's been destroyed, but there's part of it that survives, and part of it, Humphrey's describing something. He has a bad feeling of something's coming, something's going to go bad for Catholics in England, and I would love to know what he's talking about, because I don't
oh,
understand. Unless it's because I know in 1604 James basically says he had no intention of being tolerant towards the Catholics. It may have been to do with that, but I would
hmm.
like to know what's under the surface,
Oh,
what's bubbling
yeah.
under the surface that they're aware of. And unfortunately, the rest of the letter's been destroyed, so we don't know.
Oh,
Um,
oh, how annoying. Ah.
how annoying. But the only
It's,
thing that has any link to the gunpowder plot is, so after our last occupant of Harvington lived there, Mary Yates, dies in 1696.
mm,
Um, the hall, through marriage, ends up in the Throckmorton family. And the Throckmorton family, for anyone who knows Elizabethan history, they're a very well known Catholic family.
yeah.
There was the Throckmorton plot of 1583 as well. and the Throckmortons owned the hall last. They owned it from 1700 right through to 1923.
Wow.
And of course, their kind of family home now is Coton Court of Warwickshire, and that
Mm,
links to the gunpowder plot. So
yes.
Sir Everard Digby, he was one of the plotters. He was renting out Coton Court at the time, and yeah, so that has links to the gunpowder plotters and what have
Mm,
you. So yeah,
right. Well,
yeah,
fascinating. Oh, and it's always that tantalizing thing that you get a little line. I mean, I found some
yeah,
things when I'm doing my research at various places, and sometimes the the paper is completely riddled with you know bits
mm,
missing, and
yeah,
you get a line. It's like, ah, I want to know what else. What are
yeah,
you saying? Oh, so yeah, some things we'll never know, but yeah,
yeah.
it would be lovely if we could. Um, yeah, I mentioned the 1584 Act, and of course, you've mentioned Harvington Hall has quite a few priest hides or holes.
Mhm.
How many are there? Yeah, I know you mentioned this earlier.
Yeah, there are seven in total. So the
7.
photo you can see there is
Mm-hmm.
one of them. It's the one when I said about earlier on. I said in that room where the ladder was. That
Yes.
is the hiding place where the ladder used to live, and you can see the ladder. There's a ladder in there now. That's my foot as well in that picture. It's me about to go in there and hide on one of the events that we're doing. So we've got seven priest holes at the hall. We tend to call them priest hides because we do hiding places aren't necessarily small. Um, what's interesting is priest hole and priest hides. They're
Mhm.
relatively new terms. They weren't what they were actually calling them in this period at all.
Right.
Um, but yeah, we've got seven hiding places in total. So there are
Brilliant.
yeah, these secret hiding places built within the very wall of the home to keep the priest safe. If the priest hunters come knocking on the door and start tearing the house to shreds to find them.
Oof. Yeah.
Mm,
You mentioned that wasn't what they're the terms used in the past.
yeah,
Do you know the names, what they were called,
yeah.
or just
The,
yeah,
I do. So that they used to be called conveyances, which is
conveyance?
interesting. It's a bit like when you move house, it's conveyancing. It's
Yeah.
to do with moving. So I'm guessing it's moving from one space to another. That's what the
Mm,
priest hunters were looking for. So they're looking for conveyances, or they're looking for what's called secret corners. Secret
right.
corners kind of gives you a clue. It's something that's secret in the corner of a room. And what it is, it's a hiding place for the vestments and what we would now call the massing stuff. So the
Mm,
crucifix, the Latin Bibles, the candlesticks, rosaries, you name it, everything gets shoved in the corner of a room under the floorboards. So that's a secret
mhm,
corner. But what you're
right.
looking at on this photo is a priest hole or priest
Yep.
hide. This is 8 foot 6 deep, so you don't want to fall in that because you'll hurt yourself.
Mhm.
And it's 4 foot one, I think, in sort of like length, and then it's only a few foot wide. But because there's a
Oh,
ladder in it, it makes it very, very small.
right.
Um, so that's not good. We've got one in the attic, which is 12 foot six wide, 17 foot long, and 7 foot high.
Oh,
That's why it's a
that is.
hiding place.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm.
interesting. It's interesting that there are so many different shapes and sizes. Um, um, so, as we can see, you're clearly devoted to the hall, and this was made very clear as well when you needed to raise funds for the hall.
Yeah.
You've experienced what priests would have gone through firsthand. Could you tell us how this came about, please?
Yes. This came about 9 years ago, actually, when I started volunteering at the hall before I was the
Mhm.
manager. When they eventually let me volunteer at the hall, didn't keep me waiting
Yay!
any longer. 10 years away. Um, I the hall. It sounds really sad. The hall means everything to me, and I have big aspirations for the hall. I want it to become one of the most well-known historic houses or buildings in England, and everyone should know about it. It's an amazing place. And I thought, right, what better publicity stunt is there than putting myself in a priest hole and raising money for the hall for doing it? And that's what I did. So I did it 9 years ago. I hid under the stairs in a priest hole for 24 hours, and I did it to raise money for the hall and for awareness. But the other thing, a bit selfish really, it's well, not selfish really, but it's I wanted to do it to see what it was like to be a priest. It's all good and well me, talking to people like yourself and telling you, all about the hiding places and all the stories of priests hiding. But I thought, you know what? No, let's live it. Let's see what it feels like. Um, and I can tell you that it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant at all.
Oh,
And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And the thing is, when I was
no.
doing it, I wasn't going to get executed at the end of it. If I was caught,
Mm,
I knew when I was coming out. These people
yeah,
didn't. So it's
right. Yeah,
difficult times. It was very difficult times
certainly.
to be a Catholic.
Yes. Let's see if we can have a look at what you experienced. Let's see.
Hello, so this is the start of the video diary of me being in the priest hide. I've been in here about an hour, I would have said now, into my 36-hour challenge. This room, that you'll see from the camera that it's quite light. It's not. The only bit of light I can see now is my face on this camera screen looking back at me. This hiding place is very dark, it's very cold, and it's tiny. So let's take a look. I'm going to pan the camera around. We can have a look and see what's going on in the hide. So let's just grab the camera. So this is my hiding place. If you saw me doing the 24-hour challenge a few years ago, this is actually longer. I can lie down flat. Like you can see my foot at the end there. You'll notice down the end there we have a couple of walkie-talkies. One of them on, one of them off. That's just there, of course, if I need to get out. We have my bucket down the end there, which is actually, ironically, it's a donation bucket. So that's my toilet, my gimbal there for my phone, so when I'm doing live streaming on Facebook from here. That's the doorway, the beam there. You can see it's all been filled in around the sides of it. There is a window up there. That window has got blackout material, so I can't see anything. And then we have behind me, we have the table. Not the original table to the hide. The original table was stolen just after the hide was found, but this had to be built inside the hide because it is the doorway isn't that big. And there you can see my loaf of bread with a Santa on it, and a couple of big bottles of water, and my duvet. One thing I learnt from last time was try and make it as comfortable as possible, because I did go in a bit more raw last time. I didn't have much on the floor, and it was very uncomfortable. This time I've got a duvet. Unfortunately, I can feel the floorboards already, so it's going to be pretty uncomfortable. So yeah, I shall see you very soon.
Whoa, that looked very uncomfortable, but I have so much respect for people who do things like this and see firsthand how people in the past would have found it. With the exception of your recording device, you were without electricity, running water, and you certainly couldn't walk around in such a confined space. Hiding a priest was a very serious thing. According, again, to that act, every person which shall wittingly and willingly receive, relieve, comfort, aid, or maintain any such Jesuit, seminary priest, or other priest, etc., shall be adjudged a felon and suffer death. Oh, wow. I mean, at one point in your video, your colleagues make it seem like there is a search for a priest, again, as a result of that act. Shall we have a look at the next clip, maybe, and see what that was all about?
Yeah.
No one here?
got to say, I wasn't expecting them to do that. As you can hear, it's actually got me quite emotional actually, because you imagine being a priest and listening to that. It's been absolutely terrifying, like really terrifying. I know they're not going to hurt me. I know they're going to, you know, if they find me, they know I'm here. I wasn't expecting that. They're still going. They're still going. Those noises you would have heard then are literally just what it would have been like for a priest. To be in the house and hearing that going on around you must have been absolutely terrifying.
Wow, what an experience. What, looking back at that now, what do you think? Do you have anything to add about that?
Not really, other than it's traumatic. So that was the time I did it for 36 hours 4 years ago. I did it again only last year. I did 48 hours last year. And did the same thing again. They run around the house and kind of banging on all the walls and everything. It's amazing how much it affects you, and the emotion that you feel when you're doing it.
Right.
Because of course you've been there for so long, you're disorientated, you're hungry. On that particular time, I was freezing cold. In July last year, I was sweltering hot because it was so hot. And it just plays with your emotions completely. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, I think on behalf of other historians, thank you for doing that and recording it.
Yeah.
But it is genuinely terrifying to think about how people would have felt in such circumstances. Many priests were found and punished, including Saint Robert Southwell, who was executed at Tyburn on this day, the 21st of February in 1595. Not only the priests, but the people who were helping the priests would have found such an inspection absolutely terrifying. So I think many priests and men were found guilty and were punished. And there were also some other famous figures, women as well, including St. Margaret Clitheroe, who was executed by being pressed to death in York in 1586 for harboring priests. And there was also St. Margaret Ward, a Catholic from Cheshire, who was hanged at Tyburn in 1588. And St. Anne Lyne from Essex, who was another recusant. And both these last ladies were caught hiding priests and were arrested and hanged in London. Again, Lyne was executed in 1601. Now, all of this figures in with your now sold-out immersive experience, Faith and Fear, which is on throughout this month, February 2026. Could you tell us what this experience is about?
Yeah, of course. This is trying to. So these are two characters here, part of it. So, Faith and Fear is an event, immersive event where we're recreating true stories from the Reticent period of houses being searched by priest hunters, and the ladies stand up to the priest hunters. And but we're using all these real life stories and turning them into one big thing. So on the screen here, you've got the young girl. This is Tilly, one of our volunteers. She's an amazing little actress. She really is, and she plays a girl called Frances. And in real life, Frances is a girl called Frances Burrows. And Frances Burrows was an 11-year-old girl who stood up to priest hunters and basically said, "How dare you come to my mother's house when she's yet out of bed?" And she stood up to them and was forced to be reckoned with. For a little girl who's 11 years of age to stand up to priest hunters is one big thing. So she's the star of the show. Really, the event is about Frances,
Wow.
and then we have other characters like Anne Vaux, who was a recusant, a very well known woman, a very powerful woman you wouldn't have messed with. So we have Anne Vaux in the whole in the performance as well, and my character, Father William Weston. So you're going to see me, if anyone's literally in about, what would we say, 2.5 hours time, I'm going to be dressed as a Catholic priest.
Wow, brilliant.
So what happens is, so effectively what happens is they attend. It's all under candlelight. So the whole house is under candlelight, which is amazing in itself. The atmosphere changes, and there's no electric lights on. They attend an illegal Catholic mass with me at the front of it, doing all of this, and then we hear that the priest hunters have arrived. Francis and shout, "The soldiers are here! I can see them at the window." So we hide everything into the secret corner, the vestments and everything. You witness another priest. There's two priests, myself and someone else. He goes under the stairs and gets hidden, and then young Francis literally goes to the gate and says, "How dare you come to my mother's house?" And there's a group of men standing there with sword and musket, and she denies them entry. Then we let them in, and this whole event is all about intensity. It's not loud, it's not shouting or anything. It's very intimidating. So the public are in amongst this whole thing where the priest hunter comes in. He's very intimidating. He's very quiet. He's very authoritative, and he basically says, "We're going to find someone in this house," and the women stand up to them.
Right.
Young Francis gets threatened with a knife by one of them, and she basically says what she has supposedly said: "If you do so, that'll be, she'll shed the hottest blood that you should ever shed," or something like that. So she stood up to them. But there's a spy in the house, and the spy has told the priest hunters that there's someone there. So they leave the house. They don't think anyone's there, and they then come back and they find the priest under the stairs. He gets interrogated. He gets arrested, and then Father William Weston, who's me, is left in the house, and I make my escape with all the visitors at the end of it. So we've taken these real life stories where Francis Burroughs stands to priest hunters. Anne Vaux is very strong and says, "How dare you come to my house?" And then William Weston hides under a floor. It's the true story. He's hiding under a floor. The house doesn't exist. We don't know what house it is where he hid. Talks about being in this priest hole and hearing the priest hunters above him saying, "Get the hammers and hatchets," and one of them saying, "Don't be stupid. There's no one hiding there." So we use that in the line. And I'm actually hiding under that floor. That one with the ladder in, I'm hiding in there in the pitch black.
Yeah.
And we hear the priest hunters leave, and I then come out and we make our escape. It's just very intense. It's a very good event that we do. It's very intense.
Oh, yeah, it sounds great. I'd love to be able to go see that. But so it's clearly popular. Do you have any plans to do it again?
That'll be a yearly thing. So that'll start again. That'll be next January, February again.
All right. I'll have to try to get a ticket.
You should do it. I mean, it's the first year we've done it, so we've only done 2 performances now. So the first performance, of course, everyone was a bit nervous because we've not done this one before, and we've never done it with any members of the public before. But the second performance was good, and I think by the time we do our last one next Saturday, it's going to be really good.
All right. Well, break a leg. That's great. Sounds wonderful. Do you have any other events coming up?
We do. We've got an Elizabethan Living History weekend in June.
That sounds great.
So we go all aspects, so from rich to poor, and everything that people used to do in that period. We do that. We've got our history festival coming up, which we may mention, which is coming soon. And then we have our most popular event, which is the Gunpowder Plot.
Yes, that looks really good.
That sells out sells out a year in advance.
Oof.
So on the 5th of November every year at 6 p.m, the tickets go on sale for 6 evenings, 12 performances, and they sell out within an hour every time.
Yes, I've never been able to get a ticket yet. I try. I'm always late. Oh well.
And the thing is, and I'm being biased here, nowhere does what we do. Nowhere does. No historic house does the level that we do. The Gunpowder Plot is such a massive performance. Like, the production for an amateur thing is, it's very good. It's very good. I wish I could watch it, but unfortunately I'm in it. But I wish I could actually watch it and experience it for myself, because you're transported back to 1605. That is it. When you're even acting in it, it feels like you are those people, and it feels like you are in 1605. It is just It's amazing, really is.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Okay, this question has been sent ahead by one of our viewers. Is the hall haunted? Are there any ghost stories associated with the building?
Well, the hall's owned by the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Birmingham, so the Catholic Church own the house. So the kind of official answer is it's not haunted, but depends who you speak to. Yeah, I'm skeptical, but things have happened that I can't explain.
Right.
It is haunted. It's a nice feeling. There's nothing nasty about it. One thing that people will tell you is when you visit the hall, there's an atmosphere that you don't get anywhere else. And I think a lot of people say it's kind of once it gets under your skin, it's stuck with you for life. And that's what it's happened to me and all the volunteers. There's such a calm, peaceful atmosphere of the hall. You get a real sense that people live there were lovely, lovely people. But yes, if you want to hear ghost stories, I can give you a couple. So during COVID, during lockdown, I was the only person on site. So my car was the only one in the car park. There was no one else there. The gate was locked. The courtyard gate was locked, and the front door. I bolt the door from the inside, so I locked myself in. And the room above my office is the large chapel, what used to be the secret chapel during the recusancy period, and the floor furniture has been dragged along the floor of my head. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun's shining. It's a lovely day outside, and you can hear the furniture just moving around the room. Run upstairs, nothing's moved. The last one, oh my life, the last one. This was a few weeks ago. Do you remember? This would have been end of last year. End of last year, was it? No, it was this year. We had a really bad storm on a Friday. I can't remember the name of the storm. Storm something or other.
Yeah. Oh, we've had a few, haven't we? Yeah.
So it wasn't. No, it was before Christmas. It was really bad. It must have been like December, early December, I think it was.
Right.
Anyway, we were doing to raise money for Ukraine. We were doing. We were showing we were watching a film. It was is it Man for All Seasons, the Thomas More one from back in the 1960s.
Yeah.
So we're doing two showings of this film for people to come and pay to donate and to come and watch the film and what have you. We had this bad storm and there was a power cut at the hall. So I managed to hotspot off my phone onto the computer to get all the phone numbers of people who booked and said, look, don't come. We're going to cancel. The storm's really bad anyway. Don't bother coming out. Anyway, people arrived because I didn't get hold of all of them. And we watched the first one at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's fine. We were doing another showing of it at 7 o'clock in the evening, and the power cut happened again. And the weather was that bad. And I rang everyone and said, look, don't bother coming. We're just going to cancel it. So I had to set up for an event the following day. So I was setting up a great chair and all these chairs, and I had the big screen up and I started streaming. Have you ever watched the Gunpowder Plot with Kit Harington in it? It's a 3-part series.
Yes.
I love that. I think it's brilliant. And I'm watching the scenes. I'm sitting next to the fire. The lights are off. I'm the only one in Harvington Hall. All the lights are off, and I'm sitting next to the fire, watching the Gunpowder Plot. I'm watching. They call her Dorothy Dibdale, but it's supposed to be Margaret Clitheroe getting pressed to death. I'm watching this horrific thing, and I kid you not, that spiral staircase that you've seen in those photos, something hit every single step on the way down, and then I heard multiple people running up and down the spiral staircase, and I went freezing cold, and I froze, and I thought, oh, well, I won't repeat what I said out loud.
Okay.
I thought to myself,
Thank you.
I got a bottle of beer in my hand. I thought, that's a weapon. And there's a poker for the fire next to me. I thought, I'll use these as weapons. I thought, who's got in the house and who's running around the hall? And I opened the door, opened that painted door, and I put my head out and I said, hello, is anyone there? There was no one there.
Wow.
But I heard someone fall down the stairs, and I heard people running up and down the stairs. It was terrifying.
Whoa.
I didn't stay much longer.
No, don't blame you. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So, are there any books about Harvington Hall that you would recommend to our audience?
Well, not really. There's nothing specifically on Harvington Hall.
Maybe not yet. Okay.
No, not yet. I think I would like to attempt that one day. when we know a little bit more. But there are guidebooks that have been, that we've had written for years. So there are some quite in-depth guidebooks, but they're not they're not being published anymore. Some
Right.
of them might be able to pick the odd one. I don't know if there's anything on eBay going sometimes or Amazon. But so we've got the guidebook, which I'm currently rewriting because we've found new information out. It's always changing. But there are books that mention Harvington Hall. Of course, there are books that kind of talk about very much what our family would have experienced, but nothing really specifically on Harvington Hall. And there's a priest hole book as well, which is there's a new edition come out. So it's called Secret Hiding Places. It was written by a man called Michael Hodgetts, who I had the pleasure of knowing. He passed away, but his son sort of remastered his dad's book effectively, which is the second edition, which you can get on Amazon, which is called Secret Hiding Places, second edition, and that mentions quite a bit of Harvington, but it mentions priest holes in general. So that's a good book as well.
Right. Well, thank you. I look forward to seeing what you come up with. That's definitely something I'll be interested in.
Yeah.
Right. I see that, like me, you're not averse to wearing period clothing. So I think this is an amazing photo. What clothing from the past, if any, would you be fine with wearing in your daily life?
What you're seeing now, I feel more comfortable dressed like that than I do like I am now. So yeah, very much late 16th century is kind of where I sit really. I've tried earlier. I've worn medieval. It's very warm and lovely to wear, but I don't like it. Anything from Henry VIII's period just so uncomfortable. If you're rich, definitely it's horrible stuff. Elizabethan is very practical. So, a pair of breeches and a doublet, it's very practical, very comfortable, very warm as well. I've never been cold ever in period costume when it's freezing cold. They really knew how to make clothes back then. They really did for the season.
Yes.
So, very much that period.
I agree.
And I always felt like I should have dressed like that from a young age. That's one thing I always felt I should have looked like, So,
well, I agree. I mean, I think now I'm in my fourth decade, but I'm at the point now where I see other people wearing whatever they want, and I think, you know what, I'm going to dress the way I want to dress. And so if that makes me a little weird or eccentric, I don't care. I'm very much happy. Like, for example, I'm happier wearing stays than ladies' undergarments, the bras. I don't like them. There. I think there's just so much more support and comfort with these old time things. And and skirts and everything. I feel much more warm. Like even taking the dog out for a walk with my old fashioned stuff. So yeah, just wear what you want to wear. Who cares what anyone says, right? Well, that's brilliant. And I was just, throughout this whole chat, I was thinking about how wonderful it is that Harvington survived. I mean, we mentioned the destructive and widespread situation following the dissolution of monasteries for many buildings in the country, but there was also the civil wars in the 1640s and briefly in the 1650s. But what many people don't know is that the period just following World War I, so 1919, 1921, saw another huge impact on buildings, namely stately homes. Many such buildings changed hands, and a variety of factors led to the demolition of over 1,000 historic buildings by the end of the 20th century. I mean, I didn't even know that until a few years ago. But we were just walking with my family, and we came across this area, and it was ruined, and it was just completely gone. I forgot which one it was, but it was here in Derbyshire or Nottinghamshire. But anyway, it's just so great to see that places like Harvington are, as you said, it was left. It was in a state of, it was just abandoned for a while. And it's just so good that it is there for us to enjoy and to appreciate. So it's brilliant. But I'm going to ask now. There's one thing. You organized the Harvington Hall History Festival, and I've heard so many great things about it. What can attendees look forward to at this event?
Lots of engaging and interesting talks about history.
Mhm.
We predominantly kind of keep it around medieval and 16th century because that's kind of where our house kind of sits within.
Mhm.
But we get a variety of speakers, so some very well-known speakers like Tracy Borman and Ruth Goodman, to some not so well-known historians, but still equally as good. They know their subject, they know their sort of the topic that they're talking about. And so we have a marquee in the garden. It's a 200-seater marquee. We have a stage, all set out nicely, as you can imagine.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just a week of just celebrating history. It's a lovely atmosphere at the hall. And I think what makes our festival quite special is the fact it's still quite small, in the fact that we don't have many people. We have 200 per talk. You can see some of these major festivals, they've got hundreds and hundreds of people, and it makes it
Mhm.
intimate, really, because it makes you feel like you can get really up close and personal to your favorite historians,
Yeah.
but the atmosphere is really relaxed. You're in a beautiful setting of obviously the most gorgeous Elizabethan house in England. So you're in this amazing this place, the atmosphere that goes with it. So yeah, so it's a week long talks, and we do also a music concert, an early music concert in St Mary's Church, which is literally all of 50 yards across the way from Harvington. And there's an amazing group called Apollo 5, which people should check out. They're absolutely amazing, world class singers, and we have a concert with them in the church. So yeah, it's an amazing week. It's a stressful week for me. Oh my
Oh,
life!
I can imagine.
It's the most stressful week of my year, but
Oh,
everyone seems to enjoy it, and everyone smiles. So it's all right for them. I mean, I'm stressed, but everyone else having a
yeah.
good time.
Well, and you're doing this on your own, right? Or do you have a
No,
whole group to work with?
it's not on
Okay.
my own. No, of course. No,
Okay.
it's a team of volunteers, of course. So we're predominantly volunteers at the hall. But we
Mhm.
know we have professionals. We've got a professional. We've got a host for the festival, a lady called
Right.
Joe Durant or Durant. I don't know how
Yeah.
you say that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So Joe does. She's the host. We have a proper, company that can do the audio, visual, and the staging and everything. So
Yeah.
it's in capable hands, but you just know if
Yeah.
everything goes wrong, it's on my head, because I'm the manager. So it's the stress of it, really. It's the
Oh, I'm
stress of
sorry.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I understand. I ask you that because I have I work on the Stuart History Festival with the trio, so and it's a lot, and there are three of us.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I hear you. Um, Yep. So, for those in our audience who have had their appetites whet, and want to go and visit the hall, what is the best way for them to get there?
In terms of what in terms of find where the hall,
Like,
in terms of like how to
well,
find
like
like
transportation. Like, is it
oh
easier to get to?
transportation.
Is it public transportation, or is the car
The
better?
car. It's
Car.
notoriously bad. We're in the middle of
Okay.
nowhere, as you could
Yeah.
imagine, and the nearest train station is about 10 minutes. So you can get to the nearest train station, Kidderminster train station, and you can get
Okay.
get a taxi from there. It's 10 minutes. That's all we are from there.
That's
But
fine.
yes,
Yeah.
other public transport like buses, it's very difficult to get to, really.
Right. Yeah.
So definitely car, I'd say, if you can.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna ask one final thing before you can go and get ready for your show. I I'd love to ask people about their a Stuart fantasy dinner party. So if you could invite anyone from the Stuart period, not necessarily only from Harvington Hall, who would they be? What would you serve, and who would you sit next to?
This is going to, I don't know how people would feel about this one. I would invite the gunpowder plotters
Right. Wow.
because I am so fascinated by them. And I think it's the main ones because obviously you get the ones like that come in later on, like Everard Digby and people, they kind of get
Mm.
just dragged along for the ride with it. I think the main ones, Robert Catesby is someone who I find fascinating because how on earth did they think they were going to get away with it? Like, what the hell are they playing at? Like, and I think that's what I would love to know them. I obviously know their motives, but I'd love to hear their conversations. You know, were they a
Yeah.
bit not too sure, or they're just all full right? They were just going to do it. I'd love to be able to be in that room. I could imagine that how nervous they must have felt, but thinking they've got God on their side. You know, that I would just love to get into the mindset of
Yeah.
people that are quite radical. Because you think,
Mm.
to us, you're like, what are you doing? You bunch
Yeah.
of idiots! You know, you're not going to get away with this. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I think the gunpowder parts, and I would love to sit next to Robert Catesby because he
Mm.
said to have been quite a flamboyant character. He clearly was. People followed him, so you must have had
Yeah.
something about him.
Mm.
And they're a similar age to me as well. I mean, I'm older than Robert Catesby, but they're kind of all in their sort of 30s and 40s. They're kind of, I just, yeah, I would love to just hear their conversations. Obviously, you're gonna be drinking a lot of ale. I would have thought with them lot.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what we'd be serving. But I think just love to just chat with them, see what they're
Yeah.
playing at.
Maybe down the pub for
I think
some.
they're definitely down the pub kind of guys. I think.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to know what Guy Fawkes is like as well, because I think
Mm.
there's always this fantasy of Guy Fawkes, isn't there? But and everyone knows who Guy Fawkes is, but he's just a bloke with the match ready to go, isn't he? Really.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
he's obviously kept himself to himself, and no one knew who he was. So I think, that'd be fascinating. I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a really good one. I don't think anyone's said that yet. So I really get it. I see it. I see your point. Very fascinating.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be friends with them. I wouldn't want to
No.
be friends with them at all. But I would just love to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Phil. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today. And I hope everything goes well this evening.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, thank you so much. Well, Harvington Hall is a registered charity, and even if you can't visit the hall in person, you can help to protect and preserve it by donating by going to harvingtonhall.co.uk/donate. And you'll find the link to that under this video on YouTube. Thank you all for spending Stuart Saturday Live with Phil and me today. If you particularly enjoyed this episode, you will love our special bonus episode in August with Owen Roberts, the curator at Ealing Museum. Our next guest will be in March, and that will be Linda Porter, who will join me to chat about the Stuarts and her works on Mary Queen of Scots, the Stuart royal mistresses, and more. As always, this is a family-run show produced by Orland Media Limited, and all previous episodes can be seen on our YouTube channel. Just search for the 17th Century Lady. Until next time, don't forget to keep it Stuart. Farewell.